in the metro area, growth has become a double-edged sword. Cost of living is rising in the urban corridor while wages lag. What specifically will you do to reduce the cost of living in Colorado? Again, Mr. Stapleton, the floor is yours.
Growth means jobs, and jobs means growth. They are inextricably linked, and that's why I've said that my top priority will be to fix Colorado's crumbling infrastructure for the long term. We put forward a plan to do it. New bonding mechanisms from the general fund, which include sports gambling, fixing our broken medical marijuana system. Also, we've done an analysis of Colorado and 8 other states, mountain states, and found out that if we actually spent the same amount per mile on maintenance charges that these other states did, we could have more than $150 million for bonding in the future. This is in contrast to Congressman Polis's radical plan, which simply wants to invest in multimodal transportation, underutilized public transportation and bike lanes at a time when we have to be spending all of our money on roads and bridges and roads. Plus, he's going to drive so many jobs out of Colorado and bankrupt our economy that we're not going to have the tax basis to fix our roads. So he will solve the problem, and that people will be moving out of Colorado. They just won't be moving back.
Thank you. Mr. Polis.
Well, you know, it seems like every time Walker talks, it's noun, verb, Jared Polis, noun, verb, Jared Polis. I'm here to tell you about my plans. And look, we have to invest in infrastructure because while growth is very important, we need to make sure that growth actually works to improve the quality of life for Colorado families. Because what does growth mean when we have a 3% unemployment and it's very low? But for many families, you may have gotten a raise, but your rent's gone up more. Your 15-minute commute is now a 35-minute commute. Young families struggle with the high cost of childcare, and we're focused on making more preschool and kindergarten options available and saving families money on health care. So it's about how can we, yes, take this amazing economic growth engine, and as somebody who's created hundreds of jobs, who's started companies, who's met payroll, I bring that real-world practical experience to the governorship, and I can make growth work for every Colorado family.
Mr. Post, we'll begin with you this question. In a recent interview, both of you said that you would welcome Amazon HQ2 coming to Denver, bringing its 50,000 employees. Under the right conditions, though, what would represent the right conditions for Amazon to be welcomed back to Colorado, or welcome to Colorado, rather? Mr. Polis.
You know, Dominic, that's a great example because it's everything about growth writ large, right? It's in one package of 50,000 jobs, but it's the same issues we deal with in 5 packages of 10,000 jobs. So it's really a question of where and how we do it, right? We can't take that anywhere without driving up the already high costs of housing, without increasing traffic on our roads. But if you look at the metropolitan area and you work with large employers to attract them, help create competitive areas where people can get to and work, people can live affordably. These are real projects that I've worked on to deliver it in northern Colorado. In Summit County, we partnered with the commissioners to do a 40-acre land exchange at Lake Hill to provide real affordable workforce housing for people so that people who work in the community in Frisco and in Breckenridge can also afford to live in that community. That's the kind of out-of-the-box solution that I would look forward to bringing to Colorado.
Mr. Stapleton, what would represent the right conditions?
The right conditions would be a Colorado economy that puts Coloradans first and that solves our infrastructure problems for the long term. Because the fact of the matter is, we're not going to be able to compete for Amazon's business or any other big Fortune 500 company with our crumbling infrastructure. And so I'm for fixing infrastructure, not just on an incremental basis, but over the long term. And we also need attainable housing for young people that are moving here, more workforce housing. And that's going to require a strong Colorado economy. It's why I was one of the earliest supporters of the president's tax plan that more than 70% of Coloradans are benefiting from. If you make $60,000 in Colorado, your federal tax bill has gone from $1,700 to $100. This is another difference with Congressman Polis's radical, extreme agenda. He actually entered legislation to repeal the president's tax cut. He has proposed only costs, $100 billion of spending, and nothing that would actually be revenues that would help grow our economy. And you just can't rack up debt, Jared. You have to find a way to pay for it if we want to have the economic future our kids deserve in Colorado.
And Walker, you just proposed racking up debt. Your infrastructure plan, 109, would put the state in $3 billion of debt without a dime in new revenue.
That's not
so
true.
You're talking out of both sides of your mouth.
That's not true at all.
That's exactly what 109 would do, and you know
it isn't.
Gentlemen, let me offer a follow-up. Do either of you support any limitations on growth? Let's start with you, Mr. Polis.
It's not a question of limitations. It's a question of making it work for those of us already here, right? Growth should benefit those of us who already live in this state. I was born in Colorado. We're raising our kids here. Our 7-year-old, he just turned 7, Sean, just the other day, and our 4-year-old daughter. And, you know, I want this state to be amazing. And yes, there's challenges associated with growth, but there's also opportunities associated with growth to help improve our quality of life, decrease costs for families, save families money on health care, save families money on education, and help make Colorado more livable.
Mr. Stapleton, any restrictions on growth?
No, growth brings economic opportunity. Let me explain to you why Jared Polis is the most radical, extreme candidate for governor in Colorado's history. Here's why, Jared. You have unapologetically proposed a state-run healthcare system, which is $30 billion at least, maybe more. I don't know, at $32 trillion at the federal level, you authored it, so $32 trillion divided by 50. You've said that you are for a 100% renewable mandate, which is another $45 billion. You're for free preschool, that's another billion. I don't know what else you're for, but you have no way to pay for any of this. And Colorado's budget, I can tell you as the treasurer of Colorado, is $30 billion. You are proposing tripling Colorado's budget obligations and have no revenues to pay for it. Well, let me tell you as treasurer how you pay for it. Here in Colorado, if you're tripling our budget, this may not work at the federal level because the federal government runs trillion-dollar deficits, but here in Colorado, we have a balanced budget amendment. And so what happens is when you're tripling Colorado's budget, you either take it out on the taxpayer by doubling his or her income tax, or else you pass it through the legislature through a death of 1,000 cuts on businesses.
And
neither one makes Colorado a horrible place to live and work in the future for our kids, Jared.
Walker, you're the
That's
only
what
one
this is
here
about.
supporting an initiative
extreme agenda
that would put our state deeper in debt. Our entire
oh
agenda
my gosh. You voted
is
for
designed
every
around
tax
saving
increase,
money.
a carbon
I
tax
introduced
increase,
over 100 tax cuts in the United States
Talking over
Congress.
each other.
Walker.
We're not getting anywhere with this.
Yeah.
You will have a chance to go head-to-head in a moment. Dominic.